Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us in our winter webinar training series. I really appreciate your time this morning, and we are going to keep our time brief together, but no worries. I'm going to record this. I have it recording right now, and that way we can post it later to our website. I did see Ms. Burge, you commented in the Q&A. Thank you for utilizing that. So to answer your question, yes, this will be available to review later, and we will share those links. We'll be happy to do that. Speaking of Q&A, if you have any questions, please feel free to put those into the Q&A box, and I'll be happy to address those at the end of our time today. Again, I just really appreciate your time and want to make sure that this is as beneficial as possible to you. So today we are having a crash course on online testing. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you here. Here we go. And what we're going to do is we're going to navigate to the assignments tab if you're following along in your gradebook. And then of course, if you're brand new to Hawks, the way you get to the screen that you're seeing here is by logging into your Hawks Teach account and clicking on the Hawks gradebook for the course that you're teaching. So I just have mine up for introductory and intermediate algebra. And upon initial sign in, you're brought to the home page, but I have navigated to the assignments tab at the top. Now to create an online assignment or an online test, what we're going to do is we're going to navigate to the web test button here on the left. Now web test, the name implies, of course, online testing. I do want to clarify though, you can always make online quizzes or reviews, maybe for a bonus assignment. Web test is really flexible in its capabilities. So we'll just walk through the basics of creating a test, customizing those assignment settings, and then actually assigning it to our section together today. So to get started, you'll notice that I have previous tests that I've created. So as you create tests and quizzes in the web test area, you're going to just collect them all in a test bank, as you can see displayed on my screen. Now, that being said, you can always make copies of those, make a little bit of adjustments, from semester to semester. But what I like to do today is start from scratch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this create new button. And as I do that, it's going to open up in a new tab, my assignment builder tool. Now, as it loads, you're noticing it is a dual pane view. So what I'd like to clarify is what you're seeing on the left is our entire curriculum. It's just in a collapsed format. And then on the right, of course, it's a blank slate. The way I like to say it, I love to go shopping. I'm also really into home interior and design. So the way I think of it is the right side is your slab, your blank slab for building your house. And we're going to go shop for materials to build our house in its interior on the left. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull from my custom curriculum that's labeled Spring 2021. And the reason I want to pull from my custom curriculum is that it's going to ensure that I am pulling questions that my students are seeing on their homework. So any lessons that you've customized, that is going to be showing up here on that custom curriculum. When I clicked my custom curriculum, you can see it showed me all of the chapters. And if I expand any of these chapters, it's going to show me that chapter's table of contents in its lessons. Now, building my test can be as simple as saying, I want to add 20 questions from the selected lessons. You can check off, let's do the first 6 here. And then I can click add. So the system is automatically pulling questions from section 1.1a through 1.5. And you can see they have appeared here on the right. So we're going to go ahead and start building that test. We have 20 questions here. I can edit the point value here. You can see we have points per step. And something to pay attention to is some of our questions do have multiple steps. So you can see kind of a quick overview here. What we've pulled over is 20 questions, but there is 21 parts. So one of these questions has multiple steps. You can also see that you can mark as bonus. That is a newer feature that we're so excited about. We got lots of feedback and requests for that. So we're so excited to offer that to y'all now. Now let's say I wanted to handpick questions instead. So maybe not just pull those automatically, but actually handpick those questions. We can definitely do that as well. So how about we just jump into the exponents lesson, that 1.5 lesson. So we have a little trail of breadcrumbs that you can follow. So if you do want to go back to chapter 1 or even just the entire curriculum, you can always click on these tabs here to be brought back to those areas. But here we are, we have lesson 1.5 in its entirety. So what I can do is I can see any questions that are already in use, since I did go ahead and pull those questions earlier. But if I wanted to handpick those questions, I can click the add button, or I can add multiple at a time by clicking these checkmark boxes and clicking add selected. So, excuse me, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stick with just these 22 questions. Now, I do wanna just clarify that as you're building tests and you're assigning them to your students, the test order by default is presented in a random order with different iterations. So it really helps protect the integrity of the test online with it being presented in that random order with the different values. So your students will receive the same question types. It'll just look a little different for everyone. That being said, that is the default, but you can always lock the order and lock the value. So an easy way to do that would be action select all here and then lock order. And then also actions block value. And I do recommend doing that if you are going to go ahead and print that. You may be wondering, how can I print that? You can go to export to docx, and that will allow you to export this test you created and then customize it further in Word and then make your copies there. But since we're focusing on online testing, I want to make sure we keep our focus there. So what I'm going to do is click Save As, give it a name, and save my changes. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my previous tab here, and I clicked, there we go, I clicked to show the full screen. So there we go, I'm jumping back into that original tab. I'm just going to refresh my test list, and you'll notice that test that I just created is here at the top, but you'll notice if you look all the way to the right, we don't have a link, it's not assigned yet. So what we'll want to do is we're going to check that off, and you'll notice we have settings here. So where I'm going to start is the general settings. This is where I can establish the start and end date, as well as the times that I want the test to be open. If it's an online test, you want to password protect it. Sometimes that is the case, you know, with a proctored exam. You can do that here, as well as choose the test length or no time limit, the attempts, as well as which assignment group you would like it to be in. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just save those changes and close out of this little box. And I'd like to head over to this drop-down menu. Underneath the drop-down menu, another area I'd like us to jump into is the additional settings. Now, here at the top, this is when I can choose when my grades and my review will be released to students. Now, by default, grades are released upon test completion, and the students are allowed to review the test at all times. However, something I'd just like to point out, just in protecting the integrity of the test, is sometimes instructors will keep an exam online open from 8 in the morning to 8 at night. Now, when the student opens the test, they only have an hour to take it. However, everyone's schedule is a little bit different, so students may be taking it at different times throughout the day. All that being said, I just want to clarify that by default, the answer is displayed in the student review, which is of course very helpful when the student is reviewing that test, but something you may consider if you have the test open for a long period of time, you may consider just allowing the student to review the test after the end date and time of test. And that's just going to ensure that all of the students have submitted their attempts and they can't share answers or anything like that. So again, just looking out for the integrity of the test, and wanted to point that out. Now, we also, speaking of integrity of the test, we also partnered with Respondus Lockdown Browser. So if you're not familiar with that process, essentially Lockdown Browser will prevent the student from being able to open up any other tabs or windows or applications. So if I'm taking a test, I can't open up Google to Google an answer. So it really just protects the integrity of the test time. So if you wanted to do that, you would just click this checkmark box here. You can also enter a Proctor exit password. That's totally optional though. But then we can also require the review with the Lockdown Browser as well. And that would prevent the students from being able to take any screenshots of the review. We can also allow paused attempts. It's optional to display the time remaining. It kind of gives a little countdown there. Let's see. I see Ms. Oliver said your audio stopped at 11:11. Can anyone hear me? Is anyone else having trouble? Make sure that I'm not muted here. Looks like I'm still muted. Okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Rose. I appreciate you letting me know. And Ms. Oliver, maybe your internet, and I am recording it. So hopefully whenever we send out the recording, you can kind of catch up where the audio stopped. I apologize for that. But jumping back into additional settings, we also have diagnostic testing. So diagnostic testing is a special test method where essentially you set a mastery threshold. So let's say 80%, kind of like the default of our mastery lessons. And what you can do is create a pre-test. And as the students work through the questions for the lessons you've chosen, if they meet that mastery level set in the diagnostic, they essentially are tested out of those corresponding lessons because they've demonstrated proficiency. So I did just want to point that out. That is very popular with our English instructors especially. So I just wanted to point that out as well. Now, a few other things, I'm trying to keep an eye on the time here, but a few other things I wanted to point out are that we have prerequisites available. So some of our titles have chapter reviews as part of the homework lessons. Maybe you wanted to make a chapter review a prerequisite for opening a unit quiz or a unit test. That is available here in this drop-down menu in prerequisites. And then one other thing I wanted to point out is if you have a student who has the need for special accommodations, such as time and a half or maybe a makeup exam, all of that is totally flexible here as well. That would be adjusted in the student settings by test or the student settings by student. That's where you can adjust those times on an individual student basis. Now that I have my settings all customized, I'm going to save, and then I'm going to go to the Assign tab here at the top. Now, as this loads, I'm going to see my section. If you're teaching multiple sections, you'll see those appear here. And I'm going to check off my section and click Assign. So now I can see that little link is in the Assign column, so that helps me just see at a quick glance if it's assigned. And the test will appear on the student's platform upon sign in. They'll see that prompt but they won't be able to open it until that start date and time that you've indicated. I really hope this helps. Please feel free to enter any questions that you have. We have just a little bit of time left for the question and answer time, and I'd be happy to assist. I'm gonna go ahead and take a look at that now. I'm glad to see your audio was working again, Ms. Oliver. Thank you for letting me know. Let's see, and Professor O, let's discuss your question. Professor O says, I have a student last semester who had his laptop frozen during the test. What is the best way to help him? Great question. So the thing is, whenever a test freezes, it does save wherever the student left off. So that's a good thing there. Ease any concerns right from the get-go there. Now, what the student can do is they can crash their browser. So if they're using Chrome or Firefox, they can go ahead and crash it by using the little X button. And I'm going to just try to show my screen here. So I'm not going to close my browser, but this is where I could go. So I could just crash my browser there. And then sometimes if the student's having trouble, like especially with lockdown browser, if the student is using lockdown browser, the test froze, it may require a computer restart. Because with lockdown browser, there are those extra precautions. So sometimes the student isn't able to navigate their mouse at all. So in that case, you can just completely shut down your computer, have it restart. And again, everything that they were working on has saved. They can just log back into their Hawks account, click on the test, and it will allow them to resume with the time where it froze, and then also at the question that they left off on. I know that's never a good feeling. I mean, tests are stressful as it is, and that can be a very scary feeling. But yeah, rest assured, it is saved, and they should be good to go. But you can always give us a call as well if you have any questions in that moment. Let's see, Professor Lemery, how to handle time extensions for selected students. That's a great question too. So that would go back to my settings area. I would go to student settings by test or student settings by student. So that would allow me to pull up a particular student. I'm not going to demo here in this example gradebook just because this is an example course. I don't have any students enrolled. But what you'd be able to do is search your student's name. So if Sarah Smith needed an extension, you type in Sarah's name, it'll show her name, and then it will give you essentially kind of what this looks like here in general settings. It will look like this, but on a particular student basis, and you can adjust Sarah's start and end date and the time length just for that particular student. And if there are multiple students who need an extension, whether it's a special accommodation such as time and a half, or just make up a test, you can do that for multiple as well. So again, that's student settings by test or student settings by student. Just going to scroll through here. Alright, I think we answered all the questions. I appreciate all of you jumping in and letting me know that you can hear me. I definitely wanted to make sure our time was beneficial and helpful. And that all starts with being able to hear the audio. So I'm glad that y'all are able to. And again, we've recorded this and we will share this recording later for future reference. And hopefully this time was helpful and beneficial. Be sure to try to check in to our other mini webinar series, and we'll be happy to see you there. We're looking forward to supporting you and your students this spring, and Happy New Year. Bye, everyone.